Welcome to the Mecho University series on the Mecho App Device Kit. In this video, we'll cover the installation and setup of the app with your MechoNet Shade system. This setup will require an Apple iOS or Android-based mobile phone or tablet with a working camera to allow for the app to scan QR codes. It's important that you begin the process with a few key steps. The installation instructions include a connectivity checklist you should review and complete before you proceed with the app setup and device installation. If you don't complete these initial checklist steps, you may have issues with the setup process. The first checklist item is to confirm availability and connectivity of the building's Wi-Fi network. You'll need to get the name of the Wi-Fi network, which is called an SSID, and the password to access the Wi-Fi. You'll need to get those in advance from the client or their IT team. You'll use these credentials to connect the mobile device or tablet that will host the Mecho mobile app to the network so you can verify that you can connect. You'll also want to try to connect to a website using your device's web browser to confirm that you have access to the internet through this Wi-Fi connection. The BondBridge Pro unit will require an active connection to the internet to allow functions like remote access to the shades as well as important firmware updates. It requires a 2.4 GHz Wi-Fi network and cannot connect to a 5 GHz network. Another key item to understand is that prior to setting up the app to control the shades, the shade network must be installed, programmed, and otherwise fully operational. If the shade network has not been tested and verified, complete this before proceeding with the app setup and installation of the Mecho App Device Kit. Once you've completed this checklist, you can proceed. Installing the app. We'll begin the setup process by installing the app on the mobile device or tablet. Using the installation instruction sheet included with your Mecho App Device Kit, locate the two QR codes that link to the app download pages on the Apple App Store or Google Play App Marketplace. Using the camera on your device, scan the QR code and click the link to get to the app download page. Download the app to your device. When the app finishes downloading, open the app. Create an account. Let's create an account. At the bottom of the screen, select Create Account. Here, you can enter a name for the account, an email address, and a password. The app will prompt you to use an automatic strong password. If you'd like to create your own password, press the selection at the bottom of the screen. A small pop-up window will open, prompting you to choose your own password. Select this, and in the password field above, enter a password for the account. When you're finished filling in the three selections, press the Create Account button. The app will automatically create the account. No email validation is required. Pairing the bond. You'll be automatically logged into the app account and directed to the device home screen. During the setup process, you may be prompted to allow the app to allow notifications or to allow access to functions such as the camera or location surfaces on your mobile device or tablet. The device home screen will be empty, as you have not yet added any devices to the account. In the upper right-hand corner of the home screen, press the plus button. This will take you to the Add New Devices page. Press on the Bridge Pro icon to add a BondBridge Pro to the account. You'll be prompted to select a connection type. Select Wi-Fi. It is important that you follow these next steps closely and in the exact order specified in the instruction sheet and in the video. If you neglect to follow each step exactly, it may require that you go back and begin the setup process again. At this point, you'll need to unbox the BondBridge Pro control unit, assemble the power supply, and power up the BondBridge Pro. Remove the contents of the box. Locate the main power adapter body as well as the two-prong straight blade power plug adapter. Assemble the power supply by aligning the outer ring of the plug adapter with the power supply and turn clockwise until it locks into place. Connect the supplied USB cable to the power supply. Now connect the micro USB end of the power supply cable to the back of the BondBridge Pro control unit. Return to the app. It will ask you the status of the Halo LED and it should be blinking green. Here, the app is asking for location permissions. To connect the BondBridge Pro to the building Wi-Fi network, you'll need to use your camera to scan the QR code on the bottom of the unit. Here, the app asks for camera access. Turn the unit over and scan the QR code. You will be asked to join a Wi-Fi network named Bond Config. Press Join to connect. At this point, you will be prompted to update the firmware in the BondBridge Pro. You'll see the current version in the unit as well as the most recent version available. Press the Update button to allow the update to proceed. You will see a progress wheel with a percentage indicator. Be patient, this may take a few minutes to load depending on your device. When the firmware finishes downloading, the unit will reboot and the status LED will flash at various points as it continues the process of installing new firmware. The app will signal with a prompt saying that it's rebooting. The screen will prompt you when the firmware installation is complete, but in some instances the app will not automatically reconnect to the BondBridge Pro unit after the firmware installation. This is okay. If it does not reconnect after about 4 minutes, press the dots in the upper right-hand corner of the app and select Skip Firmware Upgrade. The BondBridge Pro has already downloaded and installed the new firmware, but the app may have lost the Wi-Fi connection to the Bond unit. To reconnect, simply press OK to agree to skip. This will return you to the device home screen. Press the plus button in the upper right-hand corner and repeat the process of adding the Bridge Pro, selecting the Wi-Fi setup, and scanning the QR code on the Bond unit. Since the BondBridge Pro now has the most current firmware installed, you won't see this update firmware step and will instead be guided to the About Your BondBridge Pro setup page. Here you can choose a name and a location for the unit. The region is automatically set to the United States. You can change the name and location if you wish. We'll leave ours at the defaults and press Continue to proceed. From the list of available Wi-Fi network SSIDs, you'll select the building Wi-Fi network you connected your mobile device to and tested in the initial connectivity checklist. This is the Wi-Fi network that the Bond will use to connect to the Internet cloud services. Remember to use a 2.4 GHz network. When prompted, enter the password for the Wi-Fi and press OK to proceed. The BondBridge Pro will reboot and apply the network settings. The halo LED will turn off, flash white briefly, then spin blue, signaling that it is connecting to the Wi-Fi and trying to connect to the Internet. When the LED turns solid blue, it is online and connected to the Internet. If it continues to spin blue and does not go solid, see the troubleshooting guide. Meanwhile, the app will display that it is waiting for the BondBridge Pro to come online. When the light is solid blue, the app will sync with the BondBridge Pro. When the sync is complete, you'll see a message that tells you that the unit is successfully configured. Press the Done button to proceed. The app will return to the device home screen, and you will now see the BondBridge Pro listed in the device tree. Ours is labeled MyBridge Pro from the name we set earlier in the setup process. You'll see the green device status symbol in the upper right-hand corner of the MyBridge Pro device, showing that the unit is online. Manage integrations. Press the Settings button in the lower right corner of the app home screen. Find and press the Manage Integrations button in the Settings page. Now find and press the Mecho Integrations button. On this Manage Integrations page, you'll see the MyBridge Pro device. You'll need to flip the switch on the right-hand side of the tab to enable the Mecho integration features. Now, press on the device name in the tab. This will automatically open a web browser in your mobile device or tablet, usually Safari on an Apple iOS device or Chrome on an Android-based device. It may be different for you, but it should automatically open a web-based programming interface that is labeled Mecho Bond Integration at the top of the screen. The interface has three main sections: Hub Discovery, Routing, and ZGN Table. We'll talk more about these as we move on. Setting Wi-Fi priority. This is a very key step in the setup process. Find the section of the interface labeled Routing. There are two selections for the routing priority. The default is Ethernet priority. You'll need to select the Wi-Fi priority by pressing the button. Once it is lit blue, press the Apply Routing button just below and to the left of the priority setting. The bond bridge will reboot and apply the changes to the routing priority. You can watch the halo LED, and when the LED returns to solid blue, the change should be applied. Verify that the Wi-Fi priority is still selected in the integration screen, and if it is, you can proceed. You can now remove the BondBridge power adapter and set it aside. When we install the BondBridge Pro and the remaining devices in the kit, this power adapter will no longer be used. Make sure not to lose it, as you may need it again in the future. Connecting the devices. You can unbox and install the remainder of the devices in the kit. Be sure to check out the Project Planning and Considerations video in our series to better understand where you'll want to plan to locate the devices in the kit for your project. Not every project is the same, so the kit offers some flexibility as to where the devices can be located physically within a project. I'll be wall mounting the devices for the sake of this demonstration. I first mount and power up the PoE switch using the supplied power adapter. I then mount and power up the IP router. I make the connections for the MechoNet specialty cable supplied in the kit in the accessories bag to one of the 4-pin terminal blocks on the Mecho motor hub. Insert the ferruled ends of the cable into the two MechoNet ports labeled A and B. The blue wire goes to A and the blue and white wire goes to B. Using a small flat blade technician screwdriver, tighten down the screws to secure the cable in the terminal blocks, being sure not to over-tighten them. When mounting the motor hub, it is very important that you do not connect the metal chassis to an earth ground. Do not screw it directly to a metal stud or any conductive material in contact with earth ground. Mount the motor hub directly to drywall or a wood backing panel using wall anchors or other appropriate fasteners. Connect the MechoNet cable to your shade network. See the datasheet wiring diagrams to understand where to make this connection. Based on these diagrams, you'll also understand where to install the MechoNet terminator plug included with the kit. I'll use the RJ45T adapter included with the kit to connect between two of the motor splitters on my display panel. Using the supplied Ethernet patch cables, connect the PoE port of the motor hub to port 1 on the PoE switch. Connect the LAN 1 port on the IP router to port 5 on the PoE switch. Connect the power adapter to the IP router. Connect the PoE port on the BondBridge Pro to port 2 on the PoE switch. Our device kit components are now installed and connected. Once the BondBridge Pro boots up and the LED turns solid blue, you're ready to proceed with the app setup. It is important to understand that the IP router connected with the kit is not intended to be connected to the internet. Do not connect the blue WAN port on the IP router to any external device unless instructed to do so by tech support. Mecho Hub Discovery. Return to the Mecho Bond integration screen in your web browser and locate the section labeled Hub Discovery. Press the button labeled Discover Hubs. Unless directed by our tech support team, you can leave the subnet settings at the default as shown here in the video. You'll see a pop-up to agree to continue with the Hub Discovery. Press OK to continue. The BondBridge Pro will scan the IP network and automatically discover the motor hub. In your browser screen, you'll see a hub table appear that shows all discovered hubs. Here we can see the MAC address of the Mecho motor hub, the IP address of the hub that was assigned by the IP router, a unit description, the firmware version, and a list of the motor UIDs for all of the motors in the Shade network connected via MechoNet to the motor hub. If you don't see any UIDs listed here, see the troubleshooting guide. Our UIDs are listed. Now, press the Reboot Bridge button located above the hub table. You'll be prompted with a Rebooting Bridge pop-up message. Press Close and the bond will reboot. When the Halo LED returns to solid blue, the bond is back online. As it reboots, it requests that the motors it found during the scan report to it a list of their motor address tables. At the bottom of the Mecho Bond integration page, you'll see the grid of motor UIDs and their respective motor address tables. The full scan may take a few minutes depending on how many motors were found, but you can compare the list of UIDs found to the list on your floor plan to determine if any are missing. If all are present, you can proceed. Syncing the app. At this point, we can move from the web browser back to the Bond Home app. Use the blue back arrow in the upper left corner to back up to the Settings homepage and then select the Devices button on the bottom left of the Home screen tab. The app will sync with the BondBridge Pro, and after it finishes syncing, all of the motor UIDs will automatically be displayed on the screen in a grid chronologically based on the UID addresses. Testing the controls. Press on one of the Shade UID icons to select a shade, and we can now test out the shade controls. In the control panel, you'll see a percentage-based slider with an open button above and a close button below. On the left-hand side of the panel, you'll see the preset 1, 2, and 3 buttons, along with a stop button. Test the controls and verify shade movements of the selected shade. Test various shades in the system and get familiar with the controls. It's important to understand the function of the control slider within the app. You will see this in the device control panel as well as the group control panel. The slider in these screens is not meant to show you the current position status of the shades within your project. The app does not actively query and display the current shade positions when you enter these screens. The purpose of the slider is to allow easy control to set the shade percentage of closure, meaning 0% is fully open and 100% is fully closed. When you touch and move the slider with your finger, the shade will move when you release the control and remove your finger from the screen. If you use the slider control, the shade position will match the setting of the slider, but only if you've used it to set the shade position. Likewise, the open and close buttons at the top and the bottom of the slider control will show the position status change on the slider. However, the P1, P2, and P3 preset recall controls will not display a change in the position of the slider in the app, even though the shades will move to the position called for by the controls in the app when pressed. Have appropriate expectations as to the purpose of this control within the app. Naming the shades. Select a shade to enter the control screen. Press the 2 dots in the upper right corner to access the shade settings page. Pressing the Name tab opens a panel where you can edit the screen name for the shade. On the home screen, these will appear in descending order, first numerically, then alphabetically. You can use this logic to optimize how the shades will be listed based on how you name them. By leaving the UID before the name, the shades will remain in a logical order clockwise around the project site beginning at the northeast corner of the first floor due to the UID labeling convention used in our shop drawings. Setting shade locations. In the same device settings page you use to name the shades, you can select the location of the shade. This can help you organize the devices on your home screen into rooms or floors. The default list in the app is based on residential rooms, but if you scroll down to the bottom, you can select Other and enter room or floor level location labels of your own. If multiple shades will appear in the same room, you'll only have to create the room once, and when you select the location panel from the next shade you wish to add to that room, the room label will now be available to select from the location list. Creating shade groups. Select groups along the bottom of the home screen to enter the Groups control panel. To create a group, press the plus button in the upper right corner to add a new group. Select Shade and Awning and press Continue. Now, select from the list of devices which shades you wish to add to the group. If you wish to add an entire room, you can press the Select All to add that subgroup of shades all at once. After you've selected all the correct shades for the group, press Continue. Here, you can label a name for the shade group. My demonstration panel has 2 IQ2 DC shade motors and 2 IQ2 Plus AC shade motors, so I'll create 3 groups: a DC shade group, an AC shade group, and an All Shades group. As you create the groups in the app, the BondBridge Pro will actively manage and write the group addresses to the motors for each respective group. You can see in the Group Control panel how many devices or motors are part of each group. Note that in the Group Control main panel, there is a single preset selection. This corresponds with the Preset To command for the shades in the group. This will typically be a default of 50% closure unless the shades have custom preset positions set to other values. In the Slider Control panel within the Groups page, there are no controls for presets 1, 2, and 3. Once your groups are created, you can test out the controls to verify that the shade groups work properly. If you press the arrow on the right-hand side of each group panel, you can access the percentage slider. Additionally, and it's not shown here, but from this control screen, you can select the dots in the upper right-hand corner to access the group settings, where you can edit the group name or group motor assignments. Please be aware that based on the total number of addresses available in each motor, you'll typically have between 5 and 7 total groups each motor can be a part of. This will depend on factors such as if your project also has physical wall controls to operate the shades or groups in addition to the app. Now that we've programmed our 3 shade groups, let's quickly look back in the browser at the motor address tables. Looking at the tables, I can see the group addresses that the app assigned in the motors based upon the shades I selected for each group. You'll see that the address slot 7 in the first 2 motors has a common address. This is our DC motor group. Address slot 7 in the last 2 motors has a common address. This is our AC motor group. Finally, address slot 6 in all 4 motors has a common address for our all motor group. The dealer having easy access to see the motor address tables through this interface without the need to use a laptop and MPS software is a very powerful tool to help them visualize what's happening inside the motors. Also, if a motor loses power, it will appear on the list with error messages in all 8 address slots, so a dealer can easily see if motors on the project have gone offline. Creating scenes. Select Scenes from the bottom of the home screen to enter the Scene Control panel. Press the plus button in the upper right corner to create a new scene. You can name the scene and press Continue. Now you can select the shade groups or individual shades, each of which will be assigned its own shade position within the scene. You can easily create complex arrangements of many shades or groups, all with their own positions, which don't have to all be the same, and trigger that scene from the press of a single button. Additionally, when we discuss the possible limitation of the number of available addresses in the motors when creating shade groups, you can easily overcome this by creating scenes with multiple groups all set to the same position within the scene, where you might otherwise have tried to create several overlapping larger and smaller groups and run short on available address slots in the motors. Based on common practices, this generally won't be an issue. But this is the power of the app and the flexibility of the controls that it offers for the dealer and end user to customize how things are grouped and programmed, and the scene controls can be a powerful function if used properly. Creating schedules. Select Schedules from the bottom of the home screen to enter the Schedules control panel. To add a new schedule, press the Add Schedule button in the middle of the screen. You can now select items to schedule. These can be scenes, groups, or individual shades. When a group or individual shade is selected, you'll choose an event time and an action. The when can be set to a set time or to an astronomical event such as dawn, dusk, sunrise, or sunset. There are before and after settings for each of these as well that can be set to 15-minute intervals before or after. We'll use a set time for our example. Next, we'll set the what, or the event action. You can also select how often you want the schedule to repeat. This can be a one-time event. We can select a single day or multiple days of the week. The time zone can be set from this panel, but we'll cover the time and location settings in the next section. Schedules can also be toggled on and off once we create them. It's also important to understand that when scheduling a scene, You don't have to select a what action, as all of the event actions are defined within the scene itself. Time and location. Select the BondBridge Pro from the device menu. In a project, each BondBridge Pro in your device tree has its own time and location settings. Select Advanced Settings. Scroll down to select the Time and Location tab. Here, you'll find the time zone setting, which will try to use the settings matching your phone's time zone, but can be selected manually from a list. Pressing the Location tab will automatically try to use the GPS location of your phone, which will then set the geolocation of the project to the exact location of the project site when programming the system. This geolocation will optimize the astronomical events in the scheduler that control the dawn, dusk, sunrise, and sunset events, giving the end user the best possible experience when using these scheduling functions. This concludes the basic installation and setup of the Mecho User App Kit. We hope you found this video helpful and informative. Thanks for watching, and be sure to check out the other videos in the series. You can scan the QR code on the installation instructions to link directly to the product information page on our website, where all the information on the Mecho User App Kit is located.